Enter the Dragon, though, basically about a guy who lives out, I would think, at that age or up until that age, every boy's fantasy of being like, I'm going to be internationally known and internationally recognized as such a legit ass kicker that the government hires me, one guy, one man gang, to infiltrate an island full of hookers and black belts and a bad guy with one hand, because the left hand got chopped off from the bone. He attaches claws and knives, and sometimes if he feels like making a omelet, maybe like the egg beater and a whisker or whatever. Point is, he's got a pantry full of weapons he can use with that one hand. But even so, and despite the island full of ninjas guarding him, he's got like the skills to go out against me. But I'm such a badass, I'm such a fucking legit ass kicker, and I'll take him out, I'll take the island out, I'll, wiretap the government, the location of where I'm at, so they can come on through and just blow the whole fucking island up, because Hong Kong won't claim it, the US won't claim it, it's a no man's land in the middle of the ocean, and I'm out here just fucking ass after ass, kick after kick, what the who, after who, taking everybody out. So I still wonder, despite the breakdown of the very simple and direct approach as far as the premise is concerned, where the entering of the dragon is really to be expected, I guess. Because he's been known to say, you gotta be like water, flow, go along with the movement and shit. I would think as flowing and as going as a dragon is, symbolically, mythological wise and such. Is that the entering of the dragon? Because he has to infiltrate the drug warehouse compound, bust up the plans of the evil guy, Mr. Han, or Han Job as I call him throughout the thing because it makes sense. One less hand. It's his job to be a bad guy and to run the island, so hand job. Ching. But yeah, it makes you wonder, where did the dragon enter in that case? Or is it just spiritually, but then maybe not so much spiritually because he does kill in the film. And I know good guys have had to kill before. There was that whole controversy about Man of Steel, a movie I really loved, but Superman killed the bad guy in the end because, well, he had to. He had no choice otherwise, right? I still think, touching back on Man of Steel, pause, and shouts to Henry Cavill, or Cavill, whatever. He could have just, cranked his neck back up towards the sky, maybe, towards the end part when he was what's his name, Zod, was about to zap the family, conveniently enough standing there against the wall, not running for their lives, and not trying to, at least scatter and, make him pick and choose a side to see where he's gonna, send his beams at. They just stand there, still holding each other and just waiting for the beam to, zoop, cut right through them. Superman could have, tilted him upwards and back towards the sky, but instead he snapped his neck out of desperation. And he cries and he pleads, at the end and shit. Which, again, I still think Man of Steel was it wasn't done justice. But that's Henry Cavill, what's his name? Christopher Nolan, I think, did that one. I forget. And all that aside, Enter the Dragon really is something cool to watch and remember fondly for what it is. It's basically the starting point for a lot of premises for a lot of different things. I guess because he's invited as a undercover agent for a held only every 3 years fighting tournament on a private island. You could say, hey, 1973, that's where somebody, what's his name, Tobias, and the other, I forget their names, but the creators of Mortal Kombat, maybe that's roughly where they got the premise, the idea for Mortal Kombat. Even though I know, yes, the game was supposed to be based off Jean-Claude Van Damme and Bloodsport or one of those at the time, but he turned it down, so then they went with Mortal Kombat instead. But at least maybe for the story, for the movie afterwards, it got loosely inspired by Enter the Dragon. So many other things afterwards, too. And, of course, also later on in the film, when he gets slashed in the abdomen with the guy's claws, and Bruce Lee goes down and, tastes his own blood and, kind of comes off as a real badass doing so. There's been so many reiterations of that same scene where it's pathetic to this point because it's done so much and it's done too often. Done too much too often, same thing, I know, but I think you get what I'm saying. It's just done it can't be as wow as it was the first time and be like, that's fucking cool. Because by the 100th time of seeing it in some other different embodiment or whoever else is doing it and rethinking it, it's like, Enter the Dragon, great. You're doing it too. Fantastic, unoriginal kind of thing. But okay, let's get into it then. So, as far as Enter the Dragon is concerned, all right. So when the movie starts off, you see a lot more Bruce Lee than I would have ever asked for, to the point where I would think, hey, that should be OnlyFans kind of stuff right there, because they don't waste any time. Like about a minute or so in, he's already fighting with boxing gloves on and nothing else on besides his like black undies too, which are like really high and cut to like to show he was actually kind of pale, like from the hip up, and we get to see clear, not full on ass, but like the bottom of his ass cheeks, like he was Sexy Red or something, like one of those rappers nowadays too, right? You see a little bit too much of Bruce Lee, to be honest. Now also, bearing in mind, no pun intended, I have seen, like a lot of us have, in Bloodsport, I've seen full-on ass and crack from Jean-Claude Van Damme, and we did get a good glimpse of Sylvester Stallone's ass, not the Italian Stallion, wink wink, but his ass from the side, at least, in I think Rocky IV, like the first 5 minutes or so. Don't ask me why I remember this stuff. Pause. I'm not into that stuff, but it is crazy to see guys in their peak physiques while they're on top of the movie world per se. It's kind of like obligatory, you have to see that of them. And also, of course, Arnold with the Terminator, when he was like reintroducing himself to the world and coming out naked and shit, and give me your clothes, your biker boots and everything, right? So that was weird. But first fight, of course, he wins it. It makes nothing of it. Immediately he's tapped by, I don't want to say the U.S. government because the guy does have an accent, so I think it might have been the British government. But he's basically like, okay, we need you to go undercover to infiltrate this island, right? There's this drug lord, see, offshores. It's an unmarked island. No one's claiming it, so it's literally his to run as he chooses. It's his rules, his way of the highway, except there's no highway, so you're going to drive off the side of the island if you think there's a highway, or you're making your own path and road. We need you to go in there because he's dealing with heroin and opium, distributing. He's drugging girls. He drugs them so much, it gets them so high they drop dead, and he just tosses them off the side of the island like they were fucking, chum for sharks, or, little beach balls for dolphins or something like that. So we need you to go in, get all the proof necessary, come out alive, hopefully, but even if you don't, at least get us proof some way, somehow, so we can run in and make the save and blow up the island and kill anybody left, no witnesses whatsoever, because that's how the government does, right? So it makes sense for them to get him, since he's proven to be a legitimate ass kicker. Like with every fucking martial arts based or influence filmed or anything involving a martial artist, they can all take on 10 guys in a room and walk out with just like maybe just a scratch. Or, like Steven Seagal really exaggerated that formula by like, I forget which movie it was, but he's in a room with like maybe 15 African soldiers. I think they all got AK-47s, and he walks out miraculously with like not even one hair out of place on the back of his ponytail. It's like he's just unscathed. It's like he's unbeatable. But that's Steven Seagal logic. That's his movie, his realm, his universe. We're not touching on that right now. So, of course, as a good and loyal government employee, he spends his time drunk. He's drinking throughout the whole scene. He's offering them, more than a couple of times a drink, I guess, to really be, hopefully, drunk enough to just blindly accept the mission and go about his way. But he doesn't drink. He's straight edge, pretty much. And he's like, okay, you want me to do this one-man gang style, go in, take him out, get the proof, let you guys know, come on through and do your job after I've been done with everything mostly. And he's like, yes, and we'll give you everything you need to get the job done, obviously, weapons and tech and money and whatever too. And he's like, okay, in that case, just give me a gun. Why wouldn't anyone else who's going with a gun just fucking put two in his head and that's it? And he's like, no weapons, so then why offer me anything? Why offer me anything I want if I can't get the one thing I would want most sensibly to use to take out, who is it? A jaywalker? No. Who is it? A rough housing, nursing home attendant who might have like slapped around your grandmother a little bit. No, it's a fucking drug lord. He's been proven to fucking distribute, produce, manufacture, ship out, and by the way, bring in willing girls, turn them into prostitutes and hookers and whores. Once they get high and addicted to the opium and heroin he's pumping out the island, and if they get too high in their own supply and drop dead while they're there under his watchful eye, then they get dumped off the side of the island like nothing. So why not give them guns? Oh, the logic is that this fucking guy, the government official, who's like, we need to take him down. And mind you, one of his favorite things to say is like, oh, we've got everything we need, but we can prove nothing. So, of course, it's Lee's job. That's his name in the film, too, by the way. Lee, Bruce Lee. Lee, his job is to go in and get everything for them. So only then, once he's like, oh, hey, guys, I killed everybody on the island. I took out the bad guy, excessive force, take him in dead. I couldn't do it alive. Here's all the drugs, dead center of the island. Come on down with the helicopters and, finish up the job and take all the accolades and credit and, just pay me if you can at all. Because I did the government's job pretty much. He's left to do that all by himself. And the government guy is like, no weapons, because he had a bad incident one time with a gun. He's been scarred and traumatized for life. We're being mindful of his mental health. So no weapons, no guns. Anything else, though, we got you. Go ahead. I'm sure if you find broomsticks or, nunchucks laying around there, feel free. Go ahead. But no guns, though. No bullets. We can't give you that shit. So I was like, oh, my God. How the fuck am I supposed to do this? But all right, the government trusts him enough, and I guess it kind of validates his legitimacy of being an ass kicker like that. I'll go in, fucking one-man gang that shit, kick this guy's ass and snap his neck and twist him all around and hokey pokey dokey, whatever, and then end up taking the bad guy down, one shot his ass, pow, uppercut that, or a nut shot him if all else fails, on some Johnny Cage shit, even though it was like 20 years before Johnny Cage even existed like that. Lee finds out from a friend how his sister died, who apparently was living on that island of the drug lord, with the guy telling him the story about how she passed. And apparently he never knew how it happened, but basically she got harassed by a gang of his henchmen, and the one lead guy, like his main hitman assassin guy, which they show Lee film of, O'Hara, basically just an oversized white privileged, guy that learned judo, MMA, that starts to brag on Facebook about how, we need to take this country back, basically, if he had Facebook back when. But he's O'Hara, he's got a big ass scar on his fucking face that goes like perfectly down over his eye. So he's white privileged Scarface, basically. But the guy telling Lee the story about how his sister passed connects him to O'Hara much deeper than he expects, because the gang of hooligans harassed her and chased her around a little city, island, wherever they were. O'Hara was the lead of the gang, and I don't know if they necessarily wanted to just like pick on her, bully her, and or potentially, forgive me Instagram, rape her, if that was the intent. But they chased her into a corner. She's able to fend some of them off because, of course, she's related to, Lee in the movie, so she knows martial arts too. She's able to kick off some of the guys and toss them into like a nearby little riverbank until she gets cornered into a house. They all gang up around her. The friend does help her halfway through, but he's the only smart one to pull out a whole, like, full-on blade and slash O'Hara in the face. That's why he's got the scar. That explains that. He runs off at some point. I think he gets beat off and beat up and tossed to the side. So it's his sister cornered in a fucking house, in like a barn or whatever it looks like. It seems like they're about to have their way with her. And I guess this would explain maybe why the movie was rated R kind of early on, but not kind of. It seems like they're implying they're going to have their way with her. Because I don't think they're going to do it just to like poke her with sticks and be like, you sloppy fat bitch, whatever. No. And she's not fat, by the way, too. But you know how, people get easily offended like that, right? But they corner her. It's implied they're going to do or have their way with her. O'Hara's in there, too, because he's mad he got his face slashed up just for her. She goes ahead and takes a shard of glass, like a big chunk of glass, and just, I forget what it's called in Japanese, but that thing where they they feel like they dishonored their family and just kill themselves. So she does that. She impales herself with a big old piece of glass, and boom, she's out of the picture pretty much. So I don't get why necessarily. I understand why there's a beef between Lee and O'Hara, but if she did it to herself because she was taking care of most of those goons, except they got lucky enough they were able to corner her in like a barn or whatever it was, she got cornered in the end. And then O'Hara was about to do something, but he got his face slashed in exchange with a very visible scar that's like permanent. There's no fixing that up whatsoever. Is he really the bad guy, or is he like guilty by association? Because sure, there was the intent, they were going to probably do something that's implied, but he didn't get to do it. And she killed herself on top of that. So I don't know. I'm not saying I'm validating them in what they wanted to do or what they were trying to like, get away with, potentially, but is it really that deep is what I'm saying. As deep as how she, plunged that glass into her abdomen and just said, deuces world, whatever. There's that. So now he's got a beef established with O'Hara. He's got a motive to like pursue him and or at least find him in the tournament he's been invited to fight. Now with that tournament, there's more invited individuals too. So of course there's now, I don't know about obligatory, but it was kind of cool to add into the mix. There's the black guy and the white guy. There's the white guy named Roper. There's the black guy named Williams. Last names, of course. I don't remember the first names. I don't think they gave us the first names anyway, but whatever. Ebony and Ivory, basically. Of course, they know martial arts too. Of course, they know how to defend themselves, and they've been invited because it's the third year, so it's about time for the drug lord, Handjob, to invite all the best combatants from everywhere he can imagine to come to his island and participate in the fighting tournament, presumably to the death. I mean, because if you're getting like a blind invite by somebody you don't know to an island that's not Hong Kong, that's not U.S. territory, that's like, who knows how they even found this island actually, because the government guy does have the intel. He's able to pinpoint on the map they drew up where it is, but then I guess the locals wouldn't know how to get you there. But then how do you trust any of it though? How do you just like blindly assume, oh yeah, this is safe to go to. I'm going to go to a random island. I don't know who's hosting this thing. I don't know if it's real. Am I getting, scammed? Am I going to get, kidnapped or something? Who knows? But everybody agrees. No issue there. Especially the white guy Roper, because it turns out he's a degenerate gambler who, of course, white privilege, learned some sort of martial arts, so now he matters, or he's got some sort of self-worth enough to be like, okay, this bookie's henchmen are coming after me. They want 150 grand, interest included for what I owe to him. I beat them up easily. Oh yeah, telling his assistant, whatever. Of course, she's black, so she's demoted to assistant. Yeah, tell the guy I'll take the invite to the tournament, by the way, too. I need to bet on myself to get myself out of debt, win some money, some pocket change, and maybe I'll give you a salary for once in your life, or your whole career underneath me. Because, of course, you're black. In the 70s, you worked directly under me. And you're a woman, so, of course, no question you're working directly under me. Wink, wink, white privilege. But I'm kidding. But there's also the black guy, Williams, who turns out in real life, he was actually a real karate world champion, because they had originally casted another, I forget the name of the guy. They originally casted someone else, but like days before they were about to shoot, he pulls out, and they get this guy instead, who's a legit guy from, I think they said Compton or Crenshaw, one of those. I'm not familiar with the area, so forgive me if that's the same by any chance, but he's from one of those areas. He was from one of those areas, a legit karate champion. Good looking, slim, convincing looking guy with his moves too, so they got him, cast him instead as Williams. Williams, of course, is living in the times of the 70s where, a black man can't catch a break. A young black man can't catch a break. Out there with his afro, all out and about, minding his business. He just happens to know karate. They show his little backstory of him basically getting prepped to go with his suitcases and shit. Stopped by the police. He's like, where you going, boy? And they use another term I can't use anymore these days. Not the N-word, another one to define racially black people. And he proceeds to beat them up. Both of them. Takes them out easily and takes their cop car. Which I'm thinking, I get it. I side with you, my brother. But also, you gotta consider if you make it back alive, you didn't hear that from me, if you make it back alive from this fighting tournament and you gotta come back to the good old US of A, I'm sure there's gonna be some police at your door every single day possible to harass you about, oh, you put your hands on 2 officers, not just one, so a 2-for-1 deal. We're gonna beat your ass until, you know, both sides of your face are black and blue pretty much. And since you're black, they won't be able to tell. So then we'll just throw some makeup on you and some shade, and you'll be able to go about your business with a bruised up face. And of course, police brutality for the win again. You can't beat that. Of course, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, of course. But they do give that little bit of backstory. They flash back to the current moment. Everybody's on the boat. Everybody's on the boat going over to the island. The fun part about the island is that they're all received like guests of honor. And I don't know how many combatants there were, because it was Roper, Williams, Lee. There was another white guy who was like openly racist against the other Asian guys on the boat. He's like kicking around one of the guys handling luggage and shit. I don't know who else was there, honestly. But maybe it was just 4 guys in total. That'd be kind of lame. But they'd have to be like proven experts or like the top material to like be the only 4 invited to the tournament. So then again, the tournament might be going on all day. Who knows how many combatants actually came through and shit. Basically, the point is, once they get there, they get a welcoming party the day before the tournament starts, where I think anyone with ADHD or any one of those OCD complexes, whatever, would have a nightmare, because this little festival party gathering for them, like welcome to the island. We don't do drugs here, that's obvious, wink wink. It's so much shit going on at the same time, even I would be like too worried about what do I pay attention to, because in the center, everybody's like in a circular formation, right? In the center, there's like 2 scrawny fucking sumo wrestlers giving each other wedgies. They're too scared to like push the other guy out of the ring or slam each other, whatever the sumos do. They got that going on, while around them, they've got Chinese tumblers, you know, cartwheeling and front flipping all over the place, going wild, doing it in circles. I'm getting dizzy just looking at them. On the roof, attached is a bunch of cages full of canaries and little birds, the ones that just go non-stop squawking all day because they're probably hungry, and or they're like, you know, next couple of days quick lunch or snack for the main boss, whatever. There's one of those like traditional like I think Chinese dragon guys that dress up in the big ass dragon head, and just like 2-3 guys behind them just start like going all around all over the place. There's the girls here and there back and forth with water and food and tea. There's the food that probably smells like absolute shit, but then again it might have been good, just really smelly and spicy, however they do it up over there. And then on top of that too, the boss isn't even there to like watch over them. It's just like the guests. It's like all these people doing every fucking single thing possible. There's the waiters. I don't want to get up. I don't want to go to the bathroom because I think I'm going to bump or walk into somebody easily and shit. Then the boss introduces himself, welcomes everybody, officially steps through. And then on top of that, now you got bitches throwing blow darts and ninja throwing stars, showing off like, oh, you fuck around, you'll find out, with like a ninja star wedged in between your left and right eye, pretty much. So don't sneak out after midnight and obey the rules. And on top of that, they get the bundle deal where they get free rooming. I mean, they were invited to his island, so it'd be kind enough to him to do so. A free room and lodge. I'm guessing room service included too. And on top of that, they all get offered their own little piece of ass, or numerous pieces of ass. As in, again, this is the 70s, mind you. So they all get offered easy women, which is, of course, basically the women that he's had on the island for a while now. So doing his, like, services, right? The white guy, wait, who got the first offer? Right, Williams, the brother. So they bring in 5 girls. He takes all 5 of them because he's, you know, he's got the BBC, the big black cock. He can take on all of them. He'll take all 5 of them to work on his cock at one single time because it's that big and massive, and he's got too much libido going on, and he's young, so I'm sure he's got the nuts to bust to supply and fill all their mouths up with all of it. The white guy chooses, I think, the lead white mistress, like lead hooker, madam, whatever, and she's really good at massages, apparently. Lee instead chooses the one undercover agent also there, which I think was the one that threw like the dart or something like that. She's undercover. She's been there already, but like a woman would be in the 70s, she's confined to like the back or like where nothing of any sort is going on around her for her to know what's going on as far as like illegal activities is concerned with hand job, the big boss, right? So she's of no use. All she's able to tell him is like, oh, don't go out at night because, you know, there's like guards and you're breaking the curfew rules on the island, basically, right? So now finally we get our established proof of why this movie was rated R back when. We finally get some side view and some straight on titty. Some good old 1970s titty, by the way. The white lady, massaging the white guy, Roper, does have her blouse open. She's got like pink, almost invisible looking nipple on her, but nice tits nonetheless. Flash in front of our faces. Then we cut to the brother in his room with some undisclosed, I couldn't tell her ethnicity, girl. Like nice side boob, and then we get some full-on Asian ass crack walking by in front of the screen. So further proof confirmed, this is rated R for a reason. No problem with that. Of course, the brother, he's so worn out. He's got to give his fucking big black cock room to breathe. He's got to step outside, get some air, catch a quick breather. He steps outside to mind his business. At the same time, Lee, the only one there with an actual job besides, you know, fuck and eat for free, and on top of that, fight just a little bit in the tournament because he's a special invited guest. He has to roam the premises of the island to find out where to go, where's the stash house, what are they gonna do to like let the government know that they can step in at any point in time after he's kicked all the ass on the island, of course, too. But it's very clear that after taking out a couple of guards, the seemingly, I would respect them if I saw them on sight, highly coveted black belt ninja guards are there for nothing. Or even if he's a drug lord with his own little private island shit, he's probably cutting costs at some point because he just, I think maybe it might have been like a psych out kind of trick. I think he might have gotten any sort of number of idiots or drunks from wherever he got them from, brought them to the island and pays them like barely anything a day, but slapped on a gi, tied on a black belt around their waist and said, you're going to carry yourself like you're a black belt. So when they see you and they see the black belt, they'll think twice before fucking with you. And just in case, here's some nunchucks, here's a couple of throwing stars, here's a rape whistle if all else fails. But at least we'll psych them out with the black belt on your waist, goddamn it, you fucking idiot. But it's of no use. Lee, of course, he's the ass kicker confirmed, legitimate of all of them. He's able to make quick work of two of them. One of them catches the brother outside, Williams. Snitch! Mind his business. One of them catches Williams outside and guilty by association says, oh yeah, black guy, outside, midnight. He thought he'd be so black I couldn't see him and I wouldn't be able to snitch. So he's ready to snitch and rat and tell Handjob, hey, this guy was outside after curfew. You might want to fucking tell him something because I know in America, this is the 70s, mind you, I know back in America, black guys are too cool to even care about the cops or authority, but not on this island, boss. I'm just letting you know. Don't mind me snitching, but you know, hey, I'm just letting you know. So he has to tell everybody at the following day of the tournament, okay, it's come to my attention. Some of you choose to be too cool for school and break the curfew and be out and about, but this is frowned upon as far as the island's concerned. Meanwhile, no one has any idea because he took out the guards that saw him. Lee. It was Lee the whole time causing trouble. The black man, the black dude, Williams, was minding his business, as I mentioned, stretching and, you know, getting his practice routine in for the next day of the tournament to prep and kick ass on his own, but he's the one framed for breaking curfew. So whatever, it's fucked up, right? All around wherever you look, it's fucked up. Which leads, by the way, to the ones that were alive enough to, you know, secure the premises at night past curfew, but failed to do anything about Williams being out there out and about. They get brought in, and I think a lot of people would take their jobs more seriously if this happened. You fuck up on the job, you got the risk of dying. They gotta fucking fight for their lives, basically. These fake security, these toy cops, basically. They gotta fight for their lives against, I forget his name in real life. But let's just say Chong Li from Bloodsport, the big, intimidating, muscular guy. Him. He's the main henchman for him, besides O'Hara, of course. He's there just snapping their necks, taking them apart, limb by limb, and then the last guy, he kind of just like, I don't know if this will work in real life. I God forbid I'm ever in a situation where a guy that much bigger than me can do this to me, but he cradles him like a baby and kind of just compresses him from the legs and head inwards. I'm guessing internal damage, crunching of the bones. I don't know if that's a practical move, but okay, he did that and he just kind of crunched him to death, basically compacted him to death, tosses him aside. Those guards are dead. And well, you know, they did snitch on the black guy, but they also said it was the black guy causing trouble and the one that took out the guards. Meanwhile, they were too stupid and inept to notice there might have been someone else and the black guy was there the whole time. Or that one guy could have stayed there the whole time just watching over him, making sure, hey, Williams, don't get out alive, motherfucker, and keep tabs that way. But then that would have been one guy focusing on there while the other guys would have been taken out. It's a whole mess, but still, he's guilty by association, basically. So finally, we get to one of the bigger fights. The brother does have his opening match in the tournament with the racist white guy on the boat. Makes some really quick work of him. Some good acting on the white guy, though, the racist white guy, not Roper, because once he gets the final hit, he just kind of lays there like a corpse, like he's actually legit dead. So maybe, you know, all the getting out the frustration to build up the tension to the tournament by fucking all night long, 5 women one after the other, maybe that really got him, you know, loose enough to really do some damage in the tournament, opening bout, right? Finally, we get Lee versus O'Hara. To psych him out, O'Hara grabs a wooden board from somewhere. He pulled it out his ass, presumably out of his gi, throws it in the air, punches it, breaks it, of course, which is really unimpressive. You know, I haven't taken martial arts myself. It's at some point the board breaking isn't like impressing anybody or scaring anybody. But he gives us the infamous line, which we know from this movie: boards don't hit back. Which is true. It can't hit back. It could split in an awkward angle to where, if one chose to, a piece of the wood could have like scratched his cornea or something if he would have gotten any closer to this Lee individual, right? But again, it's funny though, because they show O'Hara early on in like footage they got from the island. Oh, this is the main henchman for hand job. He's bad news. He got the scar on his face for a reason. They show him like punching through fire and breaking bricks that were lit on fire for no good reason. They're breaking boards and broomsticks on him too. They build him up like a real badass, this O'Hara guy. Meanwhile, there's nothing said or spoken of really of Handjob, who's the main boss, the guy missing the left hand, right? So they're presuming O'Hara's like this deadly killing machine protecting his boss at all costs, because the boss is like this damsel in distress that can't do nothing. But in that build-up scene in the footage on the island, the time he's chasing after the sister and can do absolutely nothing to her, and she even gets some hits on him too, which he's like, you know, kneeling over and like gasping for air and shit, and he gets slashed up in the face by like the friend of the sister. And in this fight especially, not one hit. O'Hara gets no hits whatsoever on fucking Lee. Lee hits him with the absolute perfect, what do you call that shit in Mortal Kombat? What do you call it in Street Fighter? Perfect, right? Yeah, just perfect. No, in Mortal Kombat they call it flawless victory. Literally flawless victory and brutality, because he's straight up just fucking too fast for him. Wah, 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 wah. All the shit Bruce Lee's done throughout time in his movies and shit. He does that one iconic ass, like, running sidekick into his guts that launches him into like the first row of the fucking students watching on. They're all toppling over in chairs, and it's slow motion because it's the 70s. You know, part of it might have been real, but this guy looked like he was shot out of a fucking speeding vehicle pretty much. So that was cool. This whole fight is really shot beautifully. Even as I hate to say grainy as the footage looks for as old as the movie is, it's still shot so beautifully. Like, the visuals and the panning and the angling too, it's great. To the point where O'Hara's frustrated, he grabs, conveniently enough, a couple of beer bottles or glass bottles around, cracks them, He's there to fucking just try to stab and slash away at fucking Lee, but of course Lee's too fast and coherent. He's got really baggy, like, fighting pants on, though, which is, like, concerning. I would have pantsed him. He would have been caught up in the confusion, looking here, over there, everywhere he could except down his dick, and be like, oh no, oh my god, enter the dragon for real now, and shit. And in the midst of confusion, I would have caught him with an uppercut right in the jaw, or I would have at least done what everybody loves doing in this fucking tournament, even Lee too, just straight kick him in the nuts. Take him out that way too, because we'll talk about that. Oh, also I forgot, after Williams, Roper also had his fight against another guy who was actually like a legitimate threat. But the only way to beat him is, of course, being white privileged and dirty, is to straight kick him in the nuts and punch him out like that. So apparently this tournament has no rules, and death is like scattered around. It's not like you can kill to win, but you don't have to. But if it happens, you know, we don't say nothing. O'Hara gets knocked out again, even after he's trying to stab him with the glass bottles and shit. And we get that infamous jumping scene where Lee leaps up into the air, both knees up high, touching his pectorals practically, and comes crashing down, stopping the shit out of O'Hara, which we don't, excuse me, which we don't see at all. But it is implied, apparently. This is where I call cap. I'm sorry to use the young kid lingo, or this is where I have my open doubt as far as the legitimacy of that's concerned. He's a very frail built man. It's not like O'Hara's a giant or a tub of lard or nothing, but Lee couldn't have been more than like 140 pounds. Not a big guy either. So if he's stomping on you, unless he's like stomping on your head, or maybe he lands directly on your neck and crushes your windpipe or something like that, or worse, he did that to stop. Oh, maybe, you know what? Maybe he jumped and landed directly on his nutsack and just crushed those things and blew them out his fucking sack, exposed nut genitalia mutilation and shit. Maybe that's what happened. So they don't show that, but they only show O'Hara's dead. And they take his pulse and make sure he's like, dead. Get him out of here. He's a body bag practically. It's iconic in the sense of how he kills him. And I think that was the first death confirmed by Lee in the movie, at least. It is iconic, don't get me wrong. But it's also pretty hilarious, you can't lie. Because when you look at his face trembling after he does it, it does look like he's having all the Taco Tuesday just flowing and going through him early Wednesday morning because he was too drunk to take a shit that same Tuesday night, basically. It's like... And I guess that's all the frustration and everything, pent up emotion from knowing this is the guy that killed my sisters. Well, he was there while my sister killed herself, so he's guilty by association too, white privilege. So now I killed him, so yeah, it's out of my system, kind of thing. I get that. But it's a pretty fucking funny face. I don't know how that face ain't a meme yet. Maybe I'll be the first one to pull the trigger on that. But sorry, Bruce Lee. All respect due, I'm just saying. But we go back to Williams getting called into the office of the head boss, Handjob. And, you know, small talk, a little chit-chat, you know, how you liking the island, how you liking my bitches, my brother, basically, and all that. And then he confronts him about basically, okay, my guards caught your black ass out there wandering in the middle of the night. What the fuck were you doing out there, basically? And he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I was out there, but I was just stretching my dragon out, if you know what I mean, because since no one's entering the dragon up anywhere besides me inside these bitches' pussy, what do you want me to do? I'm just a brother out here, guilty by association. Meanwhile, again, it's Lee that killed the guards and all that too, caused all the ruckus. But then now we get the inner office fight between his henchmen versus versus Williams. Williams makes quick work of all the henchmen. It's funny because one guy gets kicked so hard in the stomach that he's like holding his hands up like this and scrunching his face up. He goes up against a glass panel door, and I think only then he remembers once his back touches the door, he was supposed to fly out through the door. Instead, he kind of like moonwalks back to it, touches the door, and then just like leaps backwards out the fucking thing. And then now we get the debut of Handjob, the final boss, in his almost final form. But now we find out this whole time he has no left hand confirmed. It's basically been used as a prop, whatever he has on his left hand. At this point now it seems like a marble, stone hand, whatever. Because he goes in, he fights Williams. Williams tries to kick him, he kicks him in the hand, and he's wincing, he's in pain, his foot at least. So now fucking Handjob's going in, he's doing all the levels of work his security should be doing for him, but he's doing for himself, and just whooping on fucking Williams. They're going back and forth and shit. You know, it's an even fight pretty much. Williams, he's like handling himself. But at some point there's a bird cage that they broke in the middle of the fight, and one of his doves and or pigeons, a white bird of course, got into the black man's face, temporarily blinded him, and shit. Enough where Handjob was actually able to get in the chop with the marble stone hand and starts fucking his ass up and tosses him into the other room, which is like an opium, heroin den for all his like coked up, drugged up prostitutes. They're all laughing and giggling. They're so high, they don't know what's going on. Just like a random black man tumbling through the walls, falling onto the one in their laps. Handjob walks in, kicks him around a couple times, knocks him down, and Handjob just continues to beat him and beat him and beat him to death, bashing his face in with his metal hand or marble, stone hand, whatever it was. It wasn't really made clear. It was just like some glossy type of material, but it was definitely hard. Pause. After Williams gets beat up, presumably to death, then he calls in Roper, Handjob. Basically shows him around the whole premise, the whole facility, you know, where the stash house is, where the hoes are, all the product, everything's getting, you know, cooked up and put in the bricks and shit, whatever you do with opium and heroin. I don't know, because I never did drugs like that, except weed. A couple of times I didn't like it. Showing him everything is like, okay, you must be wondering why I'm so open to you right now, and or showing you literally everything as far as my operations are concerned. He's like, yeah, I'm wondering. He's like, well, I want you to join up with us. But it's a nice little build-up, because he's saying, as I want you to join up with us and be our U.S. representative, you cut away to fucking Williams. He's beat up, beat to death presumably, chained up, held up over this like body of water, like little, I guess you would call it like a little, I don't know what you would call it, but just water, right? A tank of water, I guess, let's say, right? He's got him there and basically forcing Roper into joining them, because, or else he's going to end up like his friend Williams, because they're friends already. They were both Vietnam vets back from the war with like not much to do basically, right? So he's like, I can't do it. They drop his friend to the fucking tank. I don't know if there were sharks or piranhas or anything in there, but it seems like he might have already been dead anyway. Dump him in there. Williams is gone, a cool character. Not the best dialogue, but cool character nonetheless. He's written off, he's done with. Roper's pretty much taken hostage and shit at that point. Lee infiltrates the fucking warehouse. While that's going on, he's busting through, he's kicking all the ass possible. Really cool scene. Follow him throughout the whole facility, underground base and shit, just kicking ass and taking broomsticks and shoving them up people's asses, and you know, kicking them over guardrails, and they're like front flipping through glass panels somehow. All this shit going on. He's able to show off his nunchuck skills, and that's really fucking cool and impressive still, even to this day. But then he finally gets trapped by one of the trap doors. He's trapped into like this little pit cave looking area, and his Handjob looking over him like, I wanted you to join up with us, but you know what? You're in more trouble than what you're worth, so you come with me, motherfucker, with his good hand, the right hand, not the left hand, because the left hand has no movable fingers like that, right? So then he's taken hostage too. Roper is made to fight Lee, or else basically. And since Roper's like, I can't do that, he's the star of the movie, goddammit, what's the point in that shit? I'm white privilege over here. Let me go. He tells him he has to face instead, again, I forget his name in the movie and or real life, so Chong Li from Bloodsport, the big muscular karate guy. Of course, Mr. White Privilege, he's got it made on Easy Street. He's been through the thick of it, even though he's a degenerate gambler, he's able to make his ends some way, somehow, always pull through. And of course, in the fight, he's getting beat up initially. The big guy gets him in the armbar. Of course, he has to fight dirty since there's no rules established in the tournament. He bites his arm to let him go. Sorry, he bites the guy's leg to let him go. Sorry. He bites the big guy's leg to let him go. They start getting up. He start throwing a little bit of hits, but then of course, nut shot. But then he hits him so hard in the nuts, presumably, that either Chung Lee passes out or he dies from it. I'm not sure. They don't show him pulling away his body or nothing, but he's like out of the picture completely. So I'm gonna hope he gave him a lot of internal damage, most likely a hernia, which in the 70s, on a remote island without I would think, without a hospital nearby, just like a couple of nurses, he's probably gonna die from some sort of staph infection or something. I don't know, but still, he's out of the picture. That leads to fucking the guy being pissed off. Handjob's like, God damn it, go get him. All the fucking henchmen surrounding him and shit, throwing wind one after the other, after Lee, after Roper. They're back to back fighting off all these fucking ninja phony black belt guys. I forgot how exactly, but someone snuck in underground and released all the prisoners that Handjob had. They're running out of there, the guys in black gis versus the guys in white gis. They're having like a Royal Rumble, they're having a Battle Royal, they're having a whole fucking gang war against each other on the fucking island, which is beautifully shot because where they did it is really nice looking, exotic looking. Everybody's having a ball. I'm sure that scene, the film was like so much fun because everybody's just like randomly throwing hits, probably not landing on each other, but there's so much going on. You can't really focus your attention on who missed and who got a real hit or whatever. Of course, in the midst of it, Lee finally gets to Handjob one-on-one. They're going at it. But in this case, Handjob pulls out one of his better hands, and he pulls out like a bear claw looking thing with like nails at the end, really sharp. And he's the one guy, finally, the boss. He had his own island, a whole island full of fucking security, black belt, fake phony ninjas that couldn't do shit to him. He's the one guy with a fake left hand that's actually able to scratch him across the face. And even he's like, oh shit, what the fuck? This is my movie. I can't be fucking getting damaged like this by nobody, let alone the boss and shit. He's like stunned. And while that happens too, he's like caught off guard. And then the one fucking henchman, after the boss did some damage at least, you know, superficially, the one henchman, very proud of himself, I'm sure, in real life too, finally is able to sock him right across the fucking mouth and temporarily stun him. So I'm sure that guy, he was hoping and praying they would have kept that part in the movie. When they shot it, was pissing himself, shitting himself, waiting for his part to come up at the world premiere of the movie, Enter the Dragon, just to be like, that's me, I'm the guy, I'm the one guy besides the boss, of course, that only matters because I fucking socked Bruce Lee across the face, and I really laid it in him, and he kicked my ass and killed me right after, but still, I'm the guy that fucking hit Bruce Lee, clean shot right across the face, whoop-pow, and all that. I did that shit. Imagine those bragging rights, though, because that's like if, you know, you're like the one guy that would have, I haven't seen all the Fast and Furious movies, but if you're like the one guy on film, and there's a clear shot of you doing it, that would have subdued Dominic Toretto. You know, family guy. Like, family this, blah! Just one shot his ass and, like, take him down. He's, like, subdued and arrested and shit. I'd be proud of that shit. I'd be well, you know, not me, because I look like like an off-brand body double, bald double, fucking Vin Diesel, if anything, so not me, but you know what I mean. That'd be fucking bragging rights. I'd be super proud of that shit. But there's the one guy that gets the hit, of course, that leads to Handjob being able to sneak away to his fucking little temple, hideout, whatever, while everybody else is really killing themselves and fighting each other and shit. Of course, Rope is left to his own, white privilege, he'll fucking prevail, he'll exist some way, somehow, he'll push through and shit. The black guy's already dead, so like the real other hero of the movie's gone. He's been done with. So it's now Lee versus Handjob, the big boss, in his little tempo dojo looking part of the fucking premise. They're fighting through the fucking thing. He's punching through glass to try to get to him in his little glass case where he's got like all his different little left-hand attachments and shit. Not able to get him exactly. He's able to get him a couple times though, in the chest, in the stomach. This is the part where they stand off at opposite ends of the room. They leap towards each other, as they do in a lot of like Hong Kong martial arts film. They leap towards each other. They don't show the actual impact, but you hear the slashing against his stomach. Lee, he comes out of it with his fucking abs cut right through. So instead of like a 6-pack, now he's got like a 14-pack. It's been cut so much. He goes, grabs a little bit of the blood, licks it, kind of freaks out, fucking hand job, because he's probably a germaphobe on top of everything while missing a left hand and technically disabled. So he should be collecting his Medicaid check, but, you know, he lives off the U.S., grid and shit, so probably collecting nothing, relying on himself and his drug money. Was able to get him. He gets him one more time across the chest and the back too. But then, of course, it's Bruce Lee. So how the fuck is he not going to tag him at some point? They do the standoff again. They leap back into the air. This one does look kind of phony. And I'll give them credit up until this point. Most of the movie does look convincing and or good enough. But this is one of the more obvious parts where it's like, that could have been done a little better. Even if it's 1970s Hollywood and or Hong Kong, that could have been done a little bit more convincingly some way, somehow. Like different shoots or angles, whatever. They're leaping towards each other. Hand job leaps. But it's like in wrestling when they kind of just like jump into a move. They're like hands up, not doing nothing, like just jumping blindly into it. Meanwhile, Lee clearly has his fucking foot out, fully extended leg, ready to kick him in the face. So all hand job has to do is just kind of leap forward, his face forward, and take a whole foot to the side of his face. He gets that. He gets knocked down. He's stumbling back up and shit on his knees. This is the second part that looks really fake. It's got to be a mannequin with like a wig stuck on top because you only see the back of his head. So he's getting up presumably on his knees and shit. And then Lee just fucking like just whiplashes fucking a roundhouse kick across his face. So hard he's shot across the room. He's stumbling and fumbling. He goes to grab a spear. Hand job grabs a spear. He throws it at him. So I'm not calling him a spear chucker. Please don't take it as that. But he tosses the spear into the wall. That shit punctures right through. And then as they're like scuffling still, hand job just flees into the fucking wall. And it's a fucking one of those like turnaround, like secret hidden walls where it turns into a glass room. All mirrors, right? So Lee, cautious and shit, follows him to the glass room. This is a really cool part still. Even like 50 years later, the way it's shot, the way it's presented and looks, and like just what's the vibes you get from it. Like it's really fucking well put together, this whole part. So kudos to whoever came up with that shit. But they're basically in the fucking mirror room. Lee's thrown off. He doesn't know where the fuck to expect him from. He's looking over here. He's looking over there. Aww. Ready to fucking take him on. But of course, hand job, since he's got the advantage of knowing the layout of his glass mirror room, he gets in, a couple of shots in, whatever, until Lee gets the idea to just start smashing up all the glass around him, which is pretty smart, so he can't play no mind tricks on him no more. And then finally they're there, they're standing off with each other, they're fucking looking at each other. Again, one more fucking flying kick to seal the deal. He kicks hand job right towards the end of the wall, where the other end of the spear was actually standing the whole time. But it's, again, one of those where he kind of lands and then jumps right back into the spear. They cut away right away to fool you. And then, whoop, he's fucking impaled right into the spear. I forget if he had his hands up or down. I think hands down probably, right? Because, yeah, there'd be no way if you're dead, like your hands are up the whole time. So, like, hands down, he's there. He turns into a meaty doorknob, this hand job guy. He's done with, he's dead. Lee's just done with him. He pushes right through the revolving door, and that door keeps spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. It's kind of unfair and unjust, but he got what he deserved, basically. He drugged up all those girls, dumped their bodies off the side of the island, and that's it for hand job. Of course, Roper's sitting there, all proud of himself, like he did something, even though he's sweaty and tired, and like maybe kicked a couple of asses, or better yet said, in Roper's case, he probably kicked a couple of nut sacks and got some dirty hits in, that dirty white privileged motherfucker. And he gets to glance over and see his favorite girl, the head mistress of all the hoes, is in the midst of battle, got stabbed up or clawed up or whatever, and she's dead. So he's all sad about it, like, oh. It's the only time he ever remembers to act with his face, like, oh. Scrunches up and shit, crying like a little bitch. Meanwhile, Lee, the one who did all the work to free all the fucking prisoners from the underground prison, to demolish pretty much the island from the inside, as far as like, all right, everybody's job is no longer secure here. You gotta flee the island, find a real job. mainland China, Hong Kong, or the U.S., whatever you got to do. It is the 70s, so just hop on a boat and you'll pray for the best and you'll make it overnight probably. And in the midst of him being in the warehouse, Lee was able to like wiretap or Morse code, I think, like the government, so they know to come in with the helicopters, and like now they come loaded up with like the missiles and torpedoes and shit, and guys with guns and shit. Meanwhile, everybody's already dead, or everybody's ass has been kicked. Where there's no need for the guns and weapons, but they could have just gave him one from the get-go. But that's all there is. The end of the movie, of course, cut away to a part where Handjob's bear claw is still like wedged into like the wood he tried to stab Lee with, but it's still there, except the rest of his body ain't attached to it. So of course Handjob's dead, left to spin forever and ever on the revolving door, impaled on a spear in his glass mirror room. He said, you know what, no one's gonna ever fucking catch me in my little house of illusion shit I got set up right here like a little carnival. Because he must have been one of those kids, he loved the carnival or the county fairs growing up. So that's why he did that in his room too. It was a closet room, it seemed like, because there were a lot of like kimonos and shit like laying around. A couple little things before we get into the end as far as the score is concerned. Again, as I mentioned, this is Lee's final completed film appearance before his death on July 20th, 1973. So about, again, almost to the date, a month before the premiere, August 19th, 1973, of Enter the Dragon. So again, as I mentioned earlier in the start, about a month after his passing is when Enter the Dragon debuted in theaters and world premiered and such. So, untimely death, age 32, Bruce Lee, you know, that sucks. R.I.P. to him, of course, also. One of the henchmen, I heard about this for a while, and I don't know if it's really confirmed or not. And I don't know if Jackie Chan said it himself. Maybe he did, I'm not too sure. Feel free to correct me in the comments or wherever if I'm wrong or if it's actually true. Allegedly, Jackie Chan was one of the henchmen in Enter the Dragon. I don't think that's being debated. I think what's being debated is that apparently he got hit for real by Bruce Lee, one of his scenes. I think presumably in like the warehouse or whatever. Bruce Lee hit him for real, and so hard to the point where Bruce Lee yelled cut, went to him immediately, apologized, and said, just for that, I'm going to make sure you have a role in every single one of my films from this point moving forward. But then, of course, he passed away before the movie even premiered. So, of course, kissed that chance goodbye to Jackie Chan. But I think Jackie, fared pretty well for himself. Because if we know his name now, besides being, the one guy, one henchman that did like a funny thing or like died hilariously in Enter the Dragon, I think he did pretty well for himself. And, you know, excuse me. Shout out to Jackie Chan. He's done his thing. He's done his own stunts in so many fucking movies. Really good guy, it seems like. Apparently there's this whole thing with his daughter where, like, I don't even know what happened, but I think, like, some shit where, like, he kicked her out or he doesn't want her to grow up privileged and shit. I don't know, something like that. And shout out to Jackie Chan. I mean, we've been entertained for years and years and years, courtesy of him putting his body on the line, doing his own stunts, and so many movies he's done unnecessarily dangerous stuff in, where, you know, shout out to Jackie Chan always. Much love to him. But I don't know about the validity of the story. It would be cool, but I'd have to see if he actually said it himself. Who knows? Maybe it is true at the end of the day. Another fun fact is that O'Hara was originally going to be played at some point by... No, sorry. They proposed to have O'Hara be played by Chuck Norris, excuse me, because they were already friends in real life, Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee. And Chuck had did a movie already, Way of the Dragon, back in 1972 with Lee before this, where they had their infamous, like, fight in the Roman Coliseum, and Lee beat him, in film at least. But apparently they made friends afterwards, or they were already friends too. They'd go over to Chuck's house a lot and just, like, spar and practice. And according to Chuck, shit would get real sometimes. Not like real, like I'm gonna fuck you up, you little motherfucker, whatever. But they would really start tagging each other, like getting a little rough and like really trying to see like how far they can push each other. But when they proposed the O'Hara role to Chuck Norris, he turned it down simply out of pride by saying, I lost to him already on film once, I can't do it a second time. So that does make you question, if Chuck Norris was O'Hara, at least it'd be a recognizable face. It'd be kind of cool, like, Lee Norris Part 2 on film. But I get it. I get it and I don't, because that's really a whole pride, ego thing going on there. But I do respect the fact that at least he was honest enough to be like, I lost once on film, I can't lose a second time. That's too much for me, bro. It's not going to work for me, brother, basically. But that is fun to think of, though, to consider. If it would have been Chuck Norris instead, would it have been such an easy, flawless victory for Lee in that case had Norris been in there? Because I'm sure Norris would have insisted on choreographing something and probably laying in more convincing hits, as well as making it like, hey, you can't easily like kill me without me getting at least 2 shots in. Like, I gotta be able to fight back, which is fair if, you know, I'm Chuck Norris versus Bruce Lee a second time on film. But also the last final fun fact is that since this was in collaboration, Hollywood and Hong Kong, and some of the film was filmed in Hong Kong, apparently there's this policy, or there was at least, with anything produced in Hong Kong or shot over there, where I don't know how it makes sense, to be honest, but Hong Kong's on Hong Kong. Back then, they'd film with no sound to save money, basically, budget purposes. So when they did the Hong Kong parts, it was with no sound. Basically, they'd have them come back in, overdub their lines. Surprisingly, though, Hong Kong did this thing where, if not the stars, or I guess, again, to save money, they'd have someone close enough sounding to the star and come back and dub their lines over again. So, of course, I was curious to look more into this as I found that out. I was like, there's no way they filmed this shit without sound, and then went back in later and had, like, someone close enough sounding to Lee. Well, Lee did his lines. You can hear his voice throughout, but other people coming back in just to overdub their parts. But apparently, it's also due to the fact that Hong Kong and or Taiwan would actually do this shit improv afterwards too. Like, it would just go in, have people like recite watermelon, watermelon, watermelon for the sake of having their mouth move, and they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and make some faces along with it, and then go back into post-production and be like, okay, try this line, see how this sounds, make it match with the film, you know, finito. Which is crazy to think, but that was apparently what they used to do. I don't know if they still do it now, but this is apparently what they used to do back when. And if you notice, you can see a lot of parts in the film where the sound don't match the mouth movement. So, makes sense. You look into it, you'll catch it. Especially like whenever hand job speaking at the tournaments, around the people and shit. It's a lot of mismatching, but that's crazy. So if I had to give it a score out of 2, Enter the Dragon, I gotta give it a 1.5 out of 2. It still holds up. The acting isn't great. The dialogue's kind of questionable from everybody outside of Bruce Lee. I give it a 1.5 because it's not too dragged out or way too long. It's like 1 hour and 40. So it's like just right, good enough, long enough, not too much where like we're sitting, squirming, trying to wait for this thing to be over. This is definitely more of a guy's film. I don't know about women going crazy about this shit. Yeah, it's like a nice, tight little package. The fights, some moves are clearly, you know, ghost hits, you know, not connecting, but overall I really enjoyed it. And watching it again after a long-ass time, 50 years later, I can still enjoy it. I don't know about 65, 75 years later how it'll hold up looks-wise, but I think it should be okay. And, I mean, Bruce Lee's still iconic even up until nowadays, so that says a lot about him, his legacy, and what he brought to the world as far as, you know, Enter the Dragon. A very simple premise, an untangible, unbelievable premise, but a cool premise nonetheless. It inspired a lot of other shit. This was the seedling that sprouted and branched out a big-ass tree of just different things that went their own separate ways and really detoured away from Enter the Dragon and its magic and its allure, but it's there, it's iconic, and it's still part of film history, and a great introduction, of course, to Bruce Lee, obviously.
Yo, it's over. All right, it's over. It's over. Move the mic. Move the mic.
Thank you.
All right.